Hello, beautiful, and welcome to the Come to Your Senses podcast. I'm your host, award-winning certified feminine embodiment coach, licensed esthetician, and enthusiastic foster dog mama to animals across the land, Mary Lofgren. Here, we explore how to bring more richness, radiance, peace, and pleasure to our lives, homes, and hearts through the joy of beauty, the wisdom of the body, the warmth of connection, and the splendor of the senses. I'm so glad you're here. Pull up a poof and let's dive in. Hello, beautiful beings, and welcome to today's episode, which I'd love to start with a story. So, a few months ago, my good friend and housemate, Bridget, invited me to an event that was an open mic called Grief and Gratitude, put on by an organization called You're Going to Die. That is an organization that supports people to be in conversation around death and dying in a creative, alchemical, supported way. This is my own description of the organization, somewhat influenced by what I found on the website, but just from what I've experienced, that's the best way I can put into words something that feels impossible to describe, which is the power of coming together for these open mics and to witness other human beings in some of the most challenging and yet most cracked open to beauty moments of life. And after my first experience of this open mic, I contacted Ned and just said, I would be so grateful to have a conversation and to share your work with my own community. So You're Going to Die is a nonprofit. They have multiple programs, including Alive Inside, which is a prison program where they bring their open mic experience to the incarcerated population across California. There are hospice programs, cancer patient programs, and they have wonderful merch if you go to their website, which is yg2d.com. That'll be placed in a link below this episode, as well as just simply the opportunity to donate and support such a beautiful, meaningful, healing community of creative souls that are truly doing love's work in the world. So you can learn more about them and donate at yg2d.com. And with that, let us now dive into our gems with Ned Buskirk. Hi, Ned.
Hi.
So excited to have you here.
Thank you.
I've been to a few of your grief open mics at the Lost Church here in San Francisco. And there's this funny thing that happens where, well, the first time I was nervous, and like...
When was that?
This was
what led to you coming?
This was a couple of months ago, and my housemate, Bridget, she volunteers with you guys sometimes to work the merch table, and she was like, there's this event and I think you'd really love it. And I think I came in the first time kind of armored, of like, okay, we're going in. We're talking about grief and loss, and here we go.
Mm-hmm.
And then you come on stage with your Good Grief t-shirt on.
So you must have, this is a December-ish event that you came to.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
I could wear it year round, but you comes out.
I know. I was like, I wonder if he wears the shirt every time because it would be so apropos.
Yeah, all right.
And I've been back to other events, and what I notice is like I come in with the kind of raincoat of San Francisco traffic and finding parking and, getting a beverage and sitting down and everybody's twittering. And then you come on stage and you open up the space, and you do so with this beautiful blending of tenderness and vulnerability, while also holding this buoyancy of the absurdity of being alive and all that we hold. And it's like, what's so interesting to me is that I feel this kind of like hot tub of relaxation happen, where this thing that I'm not even aware that I've been trying to outrun is like no longer chasing me, because here we are to just talk about it and even celebrate it.
Mm.
And so I just wanted to start there and just say thank you for that somatic experience
Mm-hmm.
of suspending the trance of being able to outrun being human,
Mm.
and just the healing and relaxation and ability to be that happens as a result of that.
Thanks, Mary. That means a lot to me. And I'm wondering, and you could say, listen, I'm the interviewer, so stop asking questions. But I'm feeling inclined to ask, and I mean it. Like, just say we've only got so much time. I have other things I want to cover. But when you came into that space and you described it as maybe like a armor, you were armored, not just like life, because I
Yeah.
don't think just life armors us. I think sometimes we consciously do. And so Bridget says, come, this will matter, and like it's intense and grief and all that, and you're like, I don't what is that armor? Is that like, I don't trust when I've been invited to that before, or there's too much, I'm not going to be the one to let this unknown into what's precious and mine.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, like, if you can add more language around like the armoring for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that question. Well, what immediately comes is, doing this work and having gone into many kind of personal growth spaces. It's like, okay, here we go. Yep. Topic du jour is grief and death. Let's go,
Yeah.
and kind of like the armoring and the, almost like Popeye muscling of like my ability to, uh, spar with these topics, like, a puffing up of like my ability to be intimate,
Mm.
you know?
That's hilarious. I mean,
You
just to
know,
know that like your armoring is you're being intimate or vulnerable. You're like, I can be vulnerable. Here we go. Let me put on the armor for it. That's
my therapist could say a lot about this with me.
that's
And yeah, and so just this like, okay, I've been through many cycles of this. And what is so unique about your, like, I like so many of the people who work with you, it's like you all bring this presence of, we're not here to get through anything. Like, we're not here to take it apart and cat's cradle it and make it okay. Like, we're here to witness and be in, like, the word that comes is like the sensuality of this,
mm,
and that's being that this has come to your senses, such a topic that's near and dear to my heart. And I remember when my dad died, he was in a bicycle accident. He was 75.
mm,
And just this experience of there being nothing else but our senses, you know? And like, I remember like he was in a bike accident. He snapped his neck and he was pretty much in a coma, but he woke up for a couple hours,
mm,
And my friend who was a physical therapist was like, you need to engage him, like you need to read to him. So, and he loved horses. So I had a horse magazine and I'm reading to him about like boarding, thoroughbreds, and like, and I could see in his eyes, like he knew, and like caring for me, even though he couldn't move a single muscle other than his eyelids. And like just that paradox, and it almost sounds trite, but like that paradox that being intimate with death is the doorway to our aliveness.
mm.
And this is a uh this is the landscape that you choose to tread every day in your work. And so I wonder if you might just like speak to that.
Mm. Um, yeah. Do you mind sharing your dad's name,
Yeah, his name was Joe.
Joe? I have so many questions, but I'm gonna practice restraint here. I'm being interviewed, but it matters to receive that and just to kind of piggyback on the senses experience, even being with you and hearing you share that story is that practice, right? I mean, it is so important to me, even when I'm on a Zoom call, to communicate experience of presence and allow myself to be here. Part of why I keep coming back to this work is because, in contrast to probably most my daily living, these spaces and conversations like this and the open mic like you attended is a chance to be only one place and
Hmm.
to have a responsibility for that place that demands I'm not distracted or on my phone or connected to my phone or thinking about the past and the future. And I heard someone say recently in another interview that I heard something around the impossibility of being just in the now. And I do think in general it is hard. And I think what you described, and I loved hearing your unique version of it, to come to the open mic and have an invitation that's somatic feels like a really good way of describing what I feel I'm probably more committed to with language as much as intention. I feel like always there was an element of this, but to really even ask us, like you may have heard me say versions of at the beginning and at the end, to really check in with our body and see how we're feeling about what we're about to experience or what we have experienced, and to know that that arrival first is such a easy and important entry point to that kind
Hmm.
of communal space. To know that our first way of paying attention to one another is by checking in with how we're doing and by acknowledging like our fragility and
Mm.
maybe even how we feel when I'm a host, like weeping in front of you at the start of what you thought was just going to be like an open mic on a theme, which is like,
Hmm.
by now it's like not really that. It's something deeper and maybe more confronting in a lot of ways. And so calling in the senses and the sensuality of the moment feels really, really good to get that reflection. And it is what is this container? Like, what is this mortal vessel feeling right now? Literally, like from the tension and the stress to the relaxation to the pain, whatever it might be. And then to note that that vessel is holding so much. It's holding the heart, and what is the heart feeling, and it's holding the mind, and what is the mind obsessing over, or what's rattling through it. And to
Hmm.
know that doorway of ourself, that first container we address and pay attention to, is a doorway into this greater container that we share in an experience like that, like the open mic offers. And I'm not great at like body stuff, I think when I'm invited into uh a massage or some kind of somatic invitation body work, there's a strong like ease with which I can get there, and that's dependent probably on the trust of who's doing the work and how they create the space for that work. And mostly I feel like I'm like up here, I'm like in
Hmm.
my head figuring stuff out, trying to get away from the moment, or just sort of fixated and addicted to like what is the next thing and how can I
Hmm.
control my life by having things organized in the emails and the text threads and the
Hmm.
so the open mic offers me that like drop back in, and the heart is that place too, that I'm getting deep into when I open up the open mic space or any of the workshops and events that we facilitate with our nonprofit work, in prison and with the cancer patients. And so all that is to say, appreciating the question and the framing you kind of added language to that I hope it's okay. I take some of that with me after today, because that feels more consciously an intention of what we can start with when we choose such sometimes hard conversations about these eventualities or the things we're living through that regular daily life doesn't, and people don't make maybe enough room for,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially in community.
Yeah. Yeah. The saying, if you think you're enlightened, go spend a week with your family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I I think that could also be applied to like if you think you're peaceful, go get a massage.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's good to hear, like I notice in myself, I think whenever I meet someone who does the kind of work that you do, I have this perception that it's like you don't, because you work in this portal, that you don't get email stress, like that you're so in the moment with your people.
Yeah. Yeah. Can
And
I just
it's
tell you? I mean, part of the reason why we're talking is because all this stuff exists in contrast to the
right.
fact that there is a major part of me that's like kind of stressed
Yeah.
and OCD, or my nervous system is like highly reactive, and my regular life, I might even be like super protected and introverted and on the defense,
Yeah.
because of how sensitive I tend to be. So
Totally.
yeah. So just to make sure we're
Yeah.
clear. That is definitely a part of my lived experience,
Yeah.
which is why I love like how we met. Like we meet in that open mic space, right? And it's like, oh, what a relief, it's not that it's not hard, but it's the kind of things that demand of me a presence of being that I is not common for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It insists on it. There's nothing I'm going to choose over the vulnerability you've witnessed, like the nights you've attended and that I've seen for over a decade in that space,
Mm-hmm.
which is wild, right? To say that I've done that open mic, just that alone, for 15 years, probably almost monthly and
Wow.
sometimes more. And to think in the kind of level of what it means to do work in the world and move on and grow success and expand programming, like there's versions of that the nonprofit has unfolded, and the work with You're Going to Die has unfolded for me, and that flagship event, that heartbeat, is still
Mm-hmm.
as strong and maybe more precious to me and important than it was when I first did it in the mission in
Mm-hmm.
2012.
Mm-hmm.
And because I need it, I need it as a medicine to my own angst and my own fears and my own fixations and obsessions and
Mm-hmm.
stress and trauma.
Yeah. And is that how it started? Like, was it a need for the medicinal experience of grieving in community?
Yeah. So I know I've named with you the risk I feel in telling the origin story. And then always we get to that question. It's like, I kind of still need to tell you the story. And I mean, for the listeners, I'm trying to say, like, I don't want me telling this story for the thousandth time to diminish the import of it. And so forgive me if somehow my heart isn't fully in all the words, but I do hope it is, like,
Yeah.
present in repeating a story so often. There's just the risk that it might deaden the import. But the reality is, the answer to your question depends on it, and it is that my mother died in 2003. And the short version of the story that connects to the
Mhm.
answer to your question is that I somehow at 26 really knew I needed to go and get support. And I didn't learn that from my family. I didn't learn it from my mom or my sister or my dad or anyone else for that matter. I think I must have had friends in my community. One
Mhm.
person comes to mind in particular who suggested even an option for what it might mean to get mental health support around that loss. And it was an organization in Los Angeles that offered inexpensive mental health support. And I joined a bereavement group for loss of a parent. And I was in that group for about a year. And there's ways that my experience in that group definitely influenced what I do now for sure, and what I started doing more and more of once the open mic opened up into all this other work with the nonprofit. But it was that place, right, that we share in the open mic space as the best
Mm-hmm.
example of it, where you go and you sit in a circle of community who have such unique versions of something that lets us witness one another well. Just to sit in a circle of folks specifically who have lost a parent, whatever the story is, whatever complex relationships they had, like this was hugely important for me to get
Mm-hmm.
that space led by a really skilled somatic and mental health professional. And I mentioned that because that was like an early time when the work I started to do out of that group was one-on-one with that professional. And I remember in circle what would happen when I would talk about my mom dying,
Mm-hmm.
how much my body would kind of all up, like I described, like the headiness and the words, and the emotion
Mm-hmm.
is just like kind of repressed and uh, what's the word, kind of chunky, coming out in stutters and
Mm-hmm.
no flow to it. And I remember her asking me to check in with my tummy, like asking me, how's your stomach feeling right now? That was an early version of what I know you understand well matters to say in the somatic work. What is going on in your body while you're feeling this and talking about it? And so I continued my healing with her one-on-one, where I'd go in for a session and not talk much, but lay on a table and have her do not Reiki, but energetic work around parts of my body, especially parts that I'm sure commonly connect to grief and loss and stress.
Mm-hmm.
Hugely important. And then, in mental health, some people keep going to their therapist and maybe stay in groups for years, but I haven't experienced that there's an ending for me. It's not forced. Often it's just a readiness that I feel it's time to move on.
Mm-hmm.
And often I'll find another therapist a year or two or three down the road. It's just clear to me that that is a time that needed to end, and it did.
Mm-hmm.
And that felt healthy. It felt like the right decision. But then I'm in my 20s and going into my 30s, still holding this loss that's changing me today in my
Mm-hmm.
40s,
Mm-hmm.
still impacting me with revelations and feelings and memories that maybe I haven't thought about in a while, and birthdays and anniversaries and death anniversaries. It's just ongoing. And mostly in life after those mental health support contexts, I was just holding that alone. I might find like a poem to write about it, or a friend to name it with drunkenly one night,
Yeah.
or meet someone else maybe. But at that age, like most of the friends I had hadn't lost their mom, and
Yeah.
many of them still haven't. So it ends up being this thing that defined my lived experience more than anything, and I wasn't talking about it. And so to answer your question, right, it's this moment.
Mm-hmm.
Once I moved to San Francisco, I have this event space that I've started that's definitely a mortality influenced, creative, expressive space, right? It's a place to share from the fact that you may not be alive tomorrow. But once my mother-in-law died in 2012, that loss brought up all my mother loss again. And
Mm-hmm.
the first open mic, which had been happening for months by that point, I was really clear of what I needed, and that what I needed was to talk about my mom and talk about my mother-in-law and name them, talk
Mm-hmm.
about their deaths and talk about their lives and talk about my mortality.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt crystal clear to me that that was the space to do it in. And lo and behold, in the months to come, once that venue we found and the clarity I had around what the job was for me there, which it was a beginning of the facilitating
Mm-hmm.
space for me,
Mm-hmm.
seeing people line up and sell that open mic event out,
Yeah.
not as a measure of like, look, cool, we're successful, but more as a, oh my gosh, look how many people need that.
Yeah. Totally.
And it was medicine for me. And it was
Yeah.
medicine to share with others,
Yeah.
and couldn't have given me what it's given me without people being clear, like you were, coupled with the right invitation to know it was a space you were willing to say yes to, which still astounds me that people choose the cancer patient writing workshop, the grief and gratitude open mic in prison, the one open mic you went to that we do in San Francisco, like to have people, it shouldn't be a surprise by now, but it still just feels significant to name. It's like, you're my people. Like
Yeah.
you say yes to this. Like it's a big deal.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like, I love the word hunger and all of the ways that hunger, like the suppression of true hunger, gets misdirected in life. And I think, I know that like just seeing the appetite of people lining up outside the Lost Church and getting tickets in advance. And, it's like there's a deep hunger there
Mm-hmm.
to talk about it and to hold it in this like chrysalis of beauty that is created when we're not necessarily like going to a therapy group to try to work through this and then become more functional. Like it's literally like a party to uplift it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard you say grief is love with nowhere to go.
Mm.
And something I so appreciate about these events is the role that creativity plays in giving that love somewhere to go.
Mm.
And I remember I did a grief group after my dad died. And one of the assignments that we had was to create a grief collage. And the therapist had printed out, a lot of like tormented images. And that was so helpful because I had a lot of conflicted grief when my dad died. There was like this deep sweetness of
Mm-hmm.
honoring and missing. And then also this like really unfinished resentment towards
Mm-hmm.
my dad,
Yep.
that I really had to work with. And I don't remember anything else from that grief group.
But
But
had they offered up other images other than the tormented
yes,
ones? Okay, all right. They're like forcing your hand.
totally.
But yeah, you were just like glad that they included the no, it's not complete or
Yeah,
it's in turmoil or suffering. Yeah, good.
totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they did definitely offer a
A
holistic.
spectrum. Good.
And that was really helpful
Yeah,
because I
that's
had
awesome.
both
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah.
on the collage and I remember nothing else from the group, but
Mm,
that cathartic experience of seeing this tangled ball of yarn inside of me, neatly arranged outside of me
mm,
in image and in beauty. And I wonder, how has this work and it's like I even hesitate to say this work because it's your life path, you know? Like it is work and it is a body of work, and yet it's also just your lived experience. And I wonder, how has your definition or understanding of beauty evolved through this work?
mm. Well, first of all, I feel it's important to say I don't know if, and if I did say it when I said grief uh, is love with nowhere to go. I've heard that before. I'd have
Okay.
quoted it,
Yeah.
but it matters to say like I don't want anyone out there that heard it somewhere else.
Right.
I'm it's not my quote. I have heard it elsewhere before, and I want to articulate that in a way I think connects to your question. My feeling that I don't, while there may have been some point, maybe the open mic where I said it, I was like, this is true, everyone. Maybe now I don't feel that way. And that is like grief for me is the like question of where the love, needs to go. I think
Yeah.
that's what grief is demanding of us. And I feel
Mm.
like that moment you're describing with the collage is that, right? It's like, oh, okay, here is where the love can go. And I understand it's a collage in a group, it's not an ongoing, practice necessarily, but that it was a moment where it found its place and it was in front of you. And I think about that in our especially writing workshops, which is usually the craft that's invited in the work I do with cancer patients, especially, but sometimes with our writing workshops online and in prison. And it is that, where can you put that thing and get it out and down in front of
Yeah.
you? And what you're describing, I would have felt, Mary, sitting with you if I was facilitating that and hearing the reflections you just shared with me. This is what I felt about them, that it is beautiful. It was beautiful to hear you describe that. And I imagine it would have been really beautiful to sit with you in that circle and see it in front of us.
Mhm.
My feelings about beauty that connect to this journey for me are the answer to why I keep doing it. When people say, how can you keep making room for that much that's hard? How can you do all of that? And my answer in the last year for sure has commonly been because of what happens when we do that. Like you witnessed and we shared at that open mic, and I see every month. That's just so wild to me. They're always different. Okay.
Mhm.
And it's always a different kind of conversation. And sometimes it's not celebratory about life. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's like really intense and there's a lot of trauma and upset. But always, every time, there's beauty that gets expressed. And it's moments that can be accented by the fact that the person talking is talking about how they wanted to end their life and tried to 10 years ago. I had a
Mhm.
moment at the last open mic where someone shared a version of that. To have that moment, to be awestruck by witnessing something that's existing in the wake of something that almost happened and it would have taken the moment away from us. That's such a great version of like what it means to see beauty unfold out of darkness. And so I think my answer to your question is just my relationship to beauty has been emphasized and magnified by choosing what is ugly in a way, like
Mhm.
what's dark and disturbing and
Mhm.
upsetting and hard to face sometimes. It's
Mhm.
the trust I have that includes resistance and torment getting named. Like your collage wasn't just sweet and pretty, but
Yeah.
there's something beautiful about you choosing torment
Yeah.
as expression. To even hear a little version of that from you about your dad, it's complicated, and in that complexity it's beautiful and enlivening because it's not simple and it's not flat. It's multidimensional, and it calls forth many parts of me. Even
Yeah.
with you in this conversation, like what we get to share, the enlivening that happens is how much people name in a space that's facilitated well, that's not all sweet and funny and good, but there's so much that we make room for. It draws forth more of our being and our spirit and our soul, maybe even a better word or a really more important word for me in this work. And that's especially from Francis Weller's influence, when the soul is asking you to look at things, point like, this is the thing I keep wanting you to pay attention to have that in a community circle. It's one of the most beautiful experiences of my life. Like I want to go and travel, Mary, to
Yeah.
many parts of the world. And there's a part of my feeling of being alive that the way I go on an adventure of traveling is in this work. Like that's where I'm like blown away by what
Right.
I get to witness, and
Right.
the risk of it too, like that it's not always easy, and that's enlivening too, like I'd rather that and think I probably get the same results in my life and well-being and my awe of what it means to be alive as I would get if I decided to skydive, or
Yeah.
climb Mount Everest,
Yeah.
you know?
Totally. I would so, and that leads me to my next and final question, but another question just popped up. I'll put a pin in the skydiving piece. I remember after that first event, there was just this line of people who wanted to talk to you.
Mm,
And I was waiting for the bathroom, or I was waiting for Bridget. She was in the bathroom, and I felt that, you were in that process of receiving people. And having been a facilitator, there was a part of me that wanted to go up to you and say, like, is there anything that you need right now? You know,
Yeah.
because it's like, in a way, in that moment, I saw you as being this kind of rock that these people could crash against, you know, with some of these deep things that they've maybe never shared with anyone. And I wonder, I mean, the real question is like, what's that like for
Mhm.
you?
Well, thank you for how that felt to you and what you wanted to offer me. I think there's a pretty healthy balance of folks understanding versions of what you just described about what happens. And I actually don't like mean to make it about me. If I could just like zoom out a little bit and acknowledge what you said, like, you know it, right? When we facilitate space a certain way, when we do it with others in our life personally, there's an energy exchange, there's offerings in both directions. What does it mean to
Mm-hmm.
matter to someone else who says they
Mm-hmm.
need you, and
Mm-hmm.
how important that is in a culture that's constantly questioning that,
Mm-hmm.
with whatever way it does, social media just alone, like, are you worth it? Prove it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to just get that moment personally is so affirming, and I am thanking you for what you sensed and noticed and wondered about, because I feel that from the community. When you have
Mm-hmm.
70 people in a room doing what we did, there feels like equal doses of the people are like, he needs a hug, as there are the people that are like, I need him,
Yeah.
and I need more of that, and or I want to thank him. And so I feel usually that balance and that
Mm.
understanding. And it is usually one of the moments in my life where I feel more open than ever,
Mm.
and in very strong and grounded, clear ways. That the
Mm-hmm.
exchange I'm experiencing with community like that is two ways, and
Mm.
there's a great okayness about it.
I love that.
And I know we only have so much time, but I want to say, like, that's not always the case.
Yeah.
Like, that I also have people that reach out to me online, and I've had to do some work around boundaries of what it means day to day to day, week to week, month to month, all year long, to say I'm someone who wants to do this and I want to be that community member. And there's a limit when you, I guess, are some version of a leader in that
Mm-hmm.
context, for me, to how much I could do that regularly.
Totally.
And the open mic events are major catharsis for me, and really good at grounding me and binding me to what I know matters more than anything. And I don't know that I like being with death constantly and thinking about it constantly. Like, I don't know that I would survive that all the time, And
Yeah.
so there is the conscious needs, kind of like, turn some stuff off, and I do need to boundary myself, and I do need to redirect. And our team growth with an organization, and meeting folks like you, Mary, and trying to do a little better effort to connect, especially mental health folks, but like community to other community, like,
Mm-hmm.
that feels more important than ever, because it's not,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I want to be careful how I say this. I want to say that is so important, right? That what we shared at that open mic is something we all can take some responsibility for when we leave that room, that we all can do versions of that in the world, and that were needed.
Mm-hmm. Mm. I really appreciate it, helps me understand because when you start us off, you're really setting the tone. And when you just get up there and start weeping,
Yeah.
like it is. It's very different from facilitating, as in like, I'm gonna take you through a process now. Like you're literally, you are in the process with everybody else. And I appreciate that distinction.
That there is truth to that, that sometimes I'm operating in and with the wound, mine. And I think mostly, like I think a good facilitator should be doing, I am working with scars. And I don't have access to the quote, and maybe I'll email it to you and you can add it in like the intro or something. But there's a beautiful quote that I just received from one of my interviews for our podcast that really clarified that to me. What does it mean to cry on stage? And sometimes cross over into like, I'm feeling a wound, like this is real and I'm like falling apart, and still knowing in the open mic context, like there's a way that works. There's a way that, yeah, we're doing something together and I want to be sharing that with people. And right, the risk of centering myself in a space that I'm like leading and opening, which is dependent on over the years, me like not drinking. Like I used to drink when I first did the open mic. And so there's commitments I've needed to make around what does it mean to stay grounded and clear, and facilitating and leading and hosting from like the right parts of my human experience. Right. It mattered to me to clarify that.
Yeah. Thank you. And the skydiving question, and this is the last question I'll have, is, we hear a lot in kind of the zeitgeist of like, make the most of every day. And that kind of hot tub relaxation feeling that I described at the start is like when I'm in the You're Going to Die spaces and just really, listening to your podcast, interacting with the organization at all, there is this feeling of like, oh, I lived today, and often culturally, I live today is, I think, conflated with a lot of intensity. Like, do the scariest thing, tell the person you're in love with them,
Right.
And like, I like just that leads to so much self-doubt and self-loathing at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. God, I did not skydive today. God, another day. I missed it. So yeah, totally. Well, yeah, I mean, it goes back to that, what I was saying, like the adventure for me is what we shared at that open mic, like the cancer patient workshop I facilitated this morning. And in that workshop, I feel like I feel like I'm ready to answer your question that you
go
finish. This was really, really, really sweet for me to receive. And I'm so glad I have a place to share it so immediately. This cancer patient was writing about what it means to be discouraged and to feel defeated. And they're facing that kind of diagnosis and treatment right now, right? It's just like, it's all a question, and and you just don't know. This could end their life. And what can they do for that not to happen? It's that kind of thing, right? And to feel the body not working and to not know what to do on top of everything that's being done to you and your body to somehow keep you alive. To feel that experience of discouragement that I can't even imagine. Like I know a discouragement. I don't know it in that way, but I learn about it in these workshops. And this person was sharing about that. And they kind of broke down the language around courage and discouragement. And, a root word in courage is like connected to the heart, and what they clarified, and I think is so precious to me, and it's a reflection of these spaces that we're talking about. And it is to know like the courage, right? We think traditionally is you had courage to get up and jump out of that airplane. But their point was that courage is to be the heart, to speak from the heart, to share from the heart, to be honest with what's raw and real and true about the heart. Like that's courage to me. So to sit in a room where people are using that kind of courage with each other which does absolutely include a version of skydiving for some folks. You know, people get up on that stage and they say, and it's often the case, I've never done this before. I've never told anyone this before.
Mm-hmm.
Like how often I've heard people stand in front of an audience and say, in front of a community and say, I've never said this to anyone. But to just name like courage to declare how broken you are,
Mm-hmm.
to declare that you're thinking of ending your life, that you've been struggling with that. I'm not anyone out there that skydives regularly. I just want to say, like, you're awesome. I definitely am a person who was afraid of standing on a skateboard and like laid on it. I literally, it probably was more dangerous, but like, I was like, not standing on this thing. There's no way in hell I'll lay on it. That's the most I do, and just roll down the driveway on my belly. It's like, I know there's a part of me that's terrified of getting hurt and dying from those kinds of
Yeah.
ways of being in the world. And yes, like to feel the enlivening you felt at the end of the open mic, I think that's because of the kind of courage we were in the presence of, including our own, to choose to be affected how many times we were in all the complicated ways we were when we were together at that in that evening. And I
Yeah.
say that a lot. It's like this evening doesn't depend on all of you getting up and sharing. It actually depends greatly and equally on how much all of you out there are willing to be affected, like that kind of vulnerability too.
Yeah.
And boy, isn't this work just a bunch of questions mostly. But I think when we really like let ourselves fall apart or let go into those questions together with one another, what emerges for me is reliably life-changing
Mm-hmm.
and especially deepens my experience of being alive, without a doubt.
Yeah. Living as the heart. Really taking that in and taking that
Mm-hmm.
with me of like, you know, yeah, it's so funny that circular thinking of like, am I doing it? Am I making the most? And that to me is really what come to your senses means. It's like awakening from these trances of lack.
Well, I mean, just to connect it to your father in that moment, like what else,
Yeah.
like you're not going to take him. And I don't mean to like keep using the skydiving reference jokingly, but like that wasn't an option.
Yeah.
What was the courageous thing to do was to do what was needed,
Yeah.
which meant like facing one of, if not the most tremendous loss of your life. I don't know all your story, but I know that it's up there.
Yeah.
And choosing to be present, and also choosing something in most contexts that's seemingly mundane, but that you knew that it mattered, like life and death.
Yeah.
And just to say and echo the sentiments that I feel like you heard, but the belief I have in the levels of consciousness of human being, to know how much your dad was with you there in ways we
Mm-hmm.
can't understand and maybe ever know, at least while we live in these bodies and
Yeah.
in this lifetime. Like, what a gift.
Yeah. There's a knowing inside of me, and I've told people in my personal life this, but not I don't usually talk about this publicly much. But when the accident happened, like I feel I have a belief that he had a choice to go or to stay, knowing that he'd be staying temporarily. But it's like he loved us and cared for us so much that like even if he had to go through that pain, like he wanted us to be able to say goodbye, you know? And I appreciate you saying that of like, because like in that situation, it didn't really seem like he was there, but I appreciate your knowing of that edge and really helps my heart feel at home. Yeah. Ah, Ned, thank you for living as your heart and the way that you inspire so many, myself included, to do the same. And we'll include all the links and all the ways. And, just very grateful for you, very grateful for your presence here, and can't wait to see you at the next YG2D. And I want to place a penny of commitment in the fountain of putting my name on the list to share.
There you go. Once you say it.
I know.
It's like you already jumped out of the plane just now.
Like that bravado of like, oh, I'll show you how intimate I can be. Yeah. Well, I haven't put my name on the list yet.
Yeah, right. All right. I look forward to that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mary.
If you're craving more of this kind of slowness in your daily life, I invite you to come unwrap a bonbon of a practice. It's a free 5-minute velvet reset to lead you back home to your body whenever your thoughts are spinning, your shoulders are tensing, or you just need to reconnect to the compass within yourself. It's waiting for you in the show notes or at marylofgren.com/body.